Hello, and welcome to today's presentation, See What's Changing, Plan What's Next, in Prince Edward County, Ontario. I'm Anne Van Vleck, Vital Signs Coordinator with the County Foundation. This session is part of the Prince Edward County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and it focuses on understanding the demographic changes shaping our community and how data can help us interpret these shifts, understand their impacts, and plan more effectively for the future. My hope is that today you'll come away with new insights about the changes happening in our community and feel inspired about ways we can respond. Highlights of the presentation are a look at new data tracking tools. We'll see how new tools are transforming how Vital Signs accesses, analyzes, and reports local data that can guide more effective service planning. Demographic shifts, we'll explore population changes and their ripple effects and see how data can help us anticipate trends and plan more thoughtfully for the future. And turning challenges into opportunities. This presentation got people sharing creative ideas on how we can overcome barriers and build a sustainable future as our community changes. So first, a look at the new in 2025, the Community Wellbeing Dashboard. It's part of the Vital Signs Community Data website at pecdata.ca, and that continues to grow as a key resource. That website offers extensive local data that's updated monthly, and it's increasingly used by local organizations for grant applications, advocacy, and informed decision-making. And so far this year, that site's been accessed over 14,000 times. So new for 2025 is the Community Wellbeing Dashboard. And it provides a quick overview of key trends and data. It was developed in response to feedback from local organizations, and we're continuing to refine it. This is a sample page from the dashboard. This is the Food Security tab. But the dashboard offers a quick snapshot of all the key areas that are tracked through Vital Signs, including community and population, economy with a focus on employment and income, education and child care, environment, food security, health, housing, safety, and transportation. So in the tabs, the visual graph provides an easy-to-read view of trends over time, while the data tables below show detailed statistics from 2006 through to the present. And for each section, there's a link to more in-depth information. So an exciting new tool for Vital Signs is mapping. And it helps to bring data to life in a different view. By visualizing information geographically, we can see patterns that we might otherwise miss. So in this map, for example, it shows population density across Prince Edward County. The darkest areas represent the areas of highest population density. So you'll see the main population centers of Picton, Bloomfield, Wellington, Rossmore, and along Rednersville Road. You may also notice that there's many parcels, smaller parcels showing in this map. Those are dissemination blocks of 400 to 700 households. So that shows promise for how we can display data in future. So you may notice on this map also the fixed transit route that's outlined in red. That goes from Picton up through Bloomfield and on to Belleville, where people can make more connections. But on-demand transit's available throughout the entire county, which helps connect residents wherever they live. So this kind of mapping doesn't just show numbers, it helps us to understand how people live and move and connect in our community. This map shows population by age, and the darker green areas show where seniors age 65 and older are the most concentrated, where they live. So those patterns are more than just numbers. They help us to plan and deliver the services our community needs. So right now, more than 1 in 3 residents in Prince Edward County, about 35% of our population, are 65 and older. That's nearly double the Ontario average of 18%. So as you can see, many of these seniors live in rural outlying areas, which makes accessible transportation and outreach services critical to reducing isolation and supporting older adults to age safely and comfortably at home. So by understanding where people live and their demographics, we can better tailor services and programs to meet the needs of all residents. Next, we'll look at demographic shifts and using data to anticipate and plan for change. This graph shows population changes over time, overall numbers. So it sets the stage for what we're going to be looking at next. So you may wonder why we're looking at historic population data when the focus of this presentation is planning for the future. I think it helps to understand what has happened in the past, and we may see some of those patterns repeat. So this graph shows overall population changes in Prince Edward County across almost 2 decades, but what it doesn't show are the Y factors behind those changes or the ripple effects that they've created. So for many years in Prince Edward County, the population had remained fairly stable. Families were larger, there were more children in the families, and there was a balanced mix of age groups. And then over time, family sizes began to shrink. Fewer children were being born, and the county was no longer sustaining its own population. And the impacts of that were significant. Over time, 4 of our public schools closed, and 2 more were threatened with closing. And that affected high school enrollment as well. That decreased, programs were reduced, and that led some parents to send their children to larger high schools outside Prince Edward County. And it became a snowball effect. There were fewer activities and programs for youth. Fewer young people remained to work, to start families, and contribute to the community. So support for our youth and young families was disappearing bit by bit. And about that same time, our community also faced the very real possibility of losing our local hospital because of our small population. And it was only through really determined local advocacy that we were able to retain our hospital. And over recent years, Prince Edward County was also emerging as a preferred retirement destination. And the senior population became the fastest growing segment of the population. And then along came the pandemic in 2020, and you can start to see the spike in the population at that time. So that triggered an unexpected influx of, particularly of young families leaving urban centers like Toronto. And Prince Edward County benefited from that population growth, but it also created short-term challenges, including limited capacity in childcare and primary classrooms. We're still feeling that to this day in our community. And this period of faster population growth also put significant pressure on the housing market, which is just starting to readjust now in 2024. Home prices spiked, rental availability declined, and rates increased. And the growth also attracted new developers and resulted in some gentrification, which led to the displacement of some longtime residents. What this graph also doesn't show is the faster turnover in the population since the pandemic. So on the surface, that modest population increase over time might not seem dramatic, but the story behind the numbers is more complex. So the number of incoming residents has nearly doubled, while more people are leaving compared to previous census period. So these rapid shifts have disrupted a community that was used to relative stability. And that pace of change has created a sense of upheaval. It's caused some friction, uncertainty, and unease, and in some cases, feeling uneasy about new people moving in. And many of those feelings are still present today. But if you look at the latest trends, 2024, it appears that possibly that population spike is slowing. And what might that mean for the county? This is a forward look at population aging. So this graph gives us a baseline for understanding where our population is naturally headed if the in-migration rate slows. In other words, if not as many people are moving in. It does, we couldn't plan for the sudden increase caused by the pandemic. So this uses our current Prince Edward County's current birth rates and death rates in the calculation of growth. So in the youth population growth that's age 0 to 14 years, that it would be stalling and would start to decline. And already that's happening. The number of children aged 0 to 4 has already dropped by about 10%, nearly 100 children since 2022. The adult population, aged 15 through 64, would drop sharply as fewer young people are entering that age group. And that shift would ripple across the community, leading to fewer children in schools, a smaller workforce age population, and increased pressure on the ability to provide local services. In the senior age group, 65 through 84, the numbers would start to slow around 2031 and peak around 2036 as baby boomers are aging out. And then the 85 plus age group would be the only segment of the population that's still growing. So over the next 30 years, the population could fall to around 23,000, resulting also in a smaller tax base. So these trends highlight the challenges ahead for workforce planning, community services, and long-term sustainability. I want to take a closer look at the decline of the workforce age population. And already local employers have been feeling this for a while. So in 2024, only about 54% of our population was of working age, compared with 67% across Ontario. That's one of the lowest proportions in the province. And as you can see, our workforce age population has been declining for some time and will continue to do so without younger generations or people coming in to fill in the workforce gap. The labor shortages here are also intensified by a high outmigration rate among working age residents. So the age 25 to 44-year-olds have been leaving the county at a high outmigration rate, one of the highest rates in Ontario. So we're losing our workforce at an alarming rate. This next graph looks at age categories by 2054, possibly just in a different way. If we notice that ages 15 through 64 might comprise about 44% of the population, they would be responsible for paying taxes and supporting the workforce to support the rest of the community. So that puts a lot of pressure on our community's vitality. So employment and workforce. Since 2006, about 4,500 new jobs have been created locally. But without enough local workers, we face a crossroads. Will our economy and essential services begin to strain? Or can commuters from outside the county help fill that workforce gap? And if we rely more heavily on commuters, what's that really mean for Prince Edward County? What are the trade-offs for that? So for example, if someone lives in Belleville, drives from Belleville to work in Picton, where will they spend their time and money? Where will they shop, volunteer, or invest their energy? Where will their property taxes be paid that support community services? Where will their children go to school, play sports, or join community programs? And ultimately, which community are they likely to feel connected to? So in summary, our population is not sustaining itself. Currently, the deaths are outnumbering births in Prince Edward County. The pandemic brought a temporary influx of new residents, including a boost of young families, which briefly shifted this trend. If in-migration slows, natural aging alone would shift the population sharply older by 2054, with 44% age 65 plus and nearly 1 in 5 residents aged 85 plus. That intensifies our pressure on healthcare and home care services. And at the same time, there'd be a smaller working age population to support that. Fewer workers, fewer taxpayers to support community services, fewer young families, and lower birth rates. So the conclusion is to keep Prince Edward County strong and thriving, it's essential to welcome new residents, to remove barriers to attracting and retaining workers, and to support young families. And that change can be difficult. Some residents may resist it. They want to keep the status quo, while others recognize that welcoming new people and new ideas is vital to keeping our community vibrant, resilient, and sustainable. In the original presentation, the audience participated in conversations to consider, with the demographic changes ahead, how can we be proactive, creative, and forward-thinking? The breakout topics focused on young family attraction and retention. How do we draw young families in and help them build lasting roots? Engaging and retaining youth. What would make young people choose to stay, return, or thrive here? Economic and workforce innovation. How can our unique demographics become a driver of creativity and new opportunities? And age as an asset. How can we better recognize and leverage the skills, experience, and strengths of older adults? So turning to today's ideas and insights into community impact, this presentation and the workshop are intended to spark more conversations, questions, and actions. And so what's next is continuing to raise awareness and sharing insights. So please share this video and the summary report of insights and ideas to your networks. The summary report with those ideas that came out of conversations can be found online at pecdata.ca. So the information will also be used to inform planning. These insights will be used to guide updates to the county's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, the next iteration, which is starting in 2026. And engaging your organization. Please reach out if you have questions, or if you'd like a presentation tailored for your community group, please contact Vital Signs at thecountyfoundation.ca. Thank you.